Okay,
Right
welcome.
now it's working. So
It's working now? Okay. All right, so welcome to the Hidden Tears podcast. I am here with author, trainer, inspirational speaker, and international frontline humanitarian worker. Let me start that over. Sorry, one more time. Welcome to the Hidden Tears podcast.
So Jordan, you have to start again.
Yes.
So it's podcast number.
Which one?
Here, let me. It's podcast number 22, I believe. But let me just check that. I'm not going to be doing this interview, Linda, because I haven't read your book. Jordan has.
Okay, great.
So I wanted to. It's better that somebody who really read it. I'm going to read it. I've just been super busy. I just wanted to get this set up so it could be recorded properly. It's episode number 22.
Okay. I'm just going to wait for this plane to finish going by on my end.
I can't hear it at all.
Okay. Okay, welcome to the Hidden Tears podcast. I'm here with author, trainer, inspirational speaker, and international frontline humanitarian aid worker, Linda Cruse. This is podcast number 22. Sorry, one more time. Last time, guys. Okay, welcome to the Hidden Tears podcast. This is podcast number 22, and I'm here with author, trainer, inspirational speaker, and international frontline humanitarian aid worker, Linda Cruse. Linda, welcome to the podcast.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm so excited and inspired to speak with you. I've been reading your book called Marmalade and Machine Guns, and we've had a few conversations, and so I'm really excited to share your work and your journey with our viewers and our listeners at Hidden Tears, because our work is very aligned. So, Linda, I want to just start off by having you tell me in your own words, what is it that you do?
Whoa, what a big question. That's very interesting. I work on the edge of when people are in their worst situations on earth. So mostly post-disaster. So natural catastrophic disasters like tsunamis, earthquakes, typhoons, war. And my background, I am an emergency nurse, so I'm very able to be in a situation when it's at its most critical. But what my key role is recovery. I stay for the long term, which is not a very occupied space, because mostly after disasters, people leave after 8 weeks, the emergency teams go, and when the recovery period is happening, there's very few people who are actually present. So that's my key role, is to help after major disasters. But I also help people in very remote and challenged areas. So I go from the high Himalayas in Nepal to the Sahara Desert to the jungles of the Amazon. It can be in refugee camps, Burmese, Afghan, Tibetan. But when people see me, they know there's a crisis. When everyone else is running out, I am running in. So something is happening, either challenged area or people in critical emergencies. Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. And I know that you told me that at this point in your life, you don't live anywhere per se, but that you are constantly traveling. And I remember reading in your book about how you had a very different life before that. You were raising your children, and you were a nurse, and you hadn't really traveled, so much in your life from what I could surmise. So could you have ever expected that your life would take this left turn? I mean, has this been such a surprise to you, or did you always feel in your gut that you would one day be having a very significant impact?
It's a very interesting question, because absolutely I loved my school. I enjoyed my nursing career hugely. I had my 2 children when I was very young. I'd met my Prince Charming, and it was a lovely few years I had with him before I got divorced. But it was a very normal start to my life. But I did always feel slightly odd when I was waiting at the school gates. I just thought, there's something I know that's going to happen later in my life where I know that I'm going to find my purpose. And I think at the beginning of my life, although it was very productive with my nursing and with my children, but I knew there was an itch I had to scratch. And that was really, I wanted to find what I was born to do. That was always in the background, that I felt was very, very important, that we all need to know it. And I knew I hadn't found it, you know, but I loved my life. And of course, as the story unfolds, it took me to have a severe wake-up call for me to break out of my very normal existence. Yes.
So I'm fascinated with these moments because in my personal life also, change is cumulative, and yet it also happens in an instant in my personal experience. And so as a human being, I've seen my own journey where I'll be thinking of something and it's coming. It's almost as a train, coming. And then there's that moment of arrival. And to me, both are wildly fascinating. But that moment of arrival, when you finally realize, this is what I've been feeling coming, this is the change, this is the exact moment, and you go through it very specifically in your book. But I'm wondering if you would be willing to share that story of when the arrival of change, or when that impetus came to you with us.
Yes, I mean, exactly as you're saying. I mean, I you know, life happens and we adjust, we're flexible, especially mothers, you know. I divorced when I was in my 20s. I had 2 little children. I wanted to be super mum. I didn't want the father to be helping with the maintenance and financially. So I needed to change my job. I needed to leave my nursing career and earn more money. And as I was looking around as to what job I should take, you know, that the glittery baubles of dollar signs was everywhere. You know, I saw this job and it was for a pharmaceutical company, and it was a company car and subsidized mortgage and good holidays. And I thought, I can do it all, you know. I mean, deep down, I thought, doesn't sit well with my soul. I'm going to be selling drugs that I don't believe in. But I kept thinking, it's okay, I can do it. So definitely I embraced a change because I needed to earn the money for my children. And so I think, like most parents, you do things slightly out of alignment because you're looking at your little ones and you know you have to do it. But as you said, I mean, every single day when I was doing this job, I would come home and have that extra glass of wine. I would cry myself to sleep. I would then look at my children and think, keep going, until, of course, you know, that cumulative effect of stress and unhappiness and that soul searching of, it just didn't sit with me. And I was driving home from a very hyped up sales conference, and I was so eager to leave. I drove through the night, so I was tired, I was stressed, I was miserable. And as I was driving, I had this terrible stabbing pains behind my eyes, and the curtains came down and I went blind. And until this day, I will never be able to come to terms with what happened, because it was so sudden, so shocking, so terrifying. And sitting on the hard shoulder of the motorway, thinking my life was over. When you go blind, it's like when you lose a sense, it's the most, your brain cannot actually fathom out what's going on. You're questioning, what is it I can't do? I can't see. And I realized, of course, I'd gone blind. And there was before the time of mobile phones, and I sat there not being able to call anyone, not to talk to anyone, not to be able to get out the car. And of course, I started to pray, because in those darkest moments, what do you do? And I sat there and I literally prayed to a God I hadn't thought about for many, many, many years. And I made a pact. And I said, if my sight comes back, that I promise that I will find what I was born to do. I will find out what my purpose was, and I will stop living a lie, living a life that was making everyone unhappy, because I was so miserable, and I realized that I was having that effect on the people around me. And so that huge, terrifying wake-up call, I needed it, sadly, to actually stop me in my tracks. Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. I know that it took you some time from when you made that choice to actually begin your work. And in your book, you describe those 3 years, I believe it was, of putting the vision board together, the map of the world, and all the places that you wanted to go. And I'm curious about your vision and how it unfolded, because I know that you knew you wanted to travel, but in that instance, did you know specifically the kind of humanitarian aid work that you wanted to do, or was that something that developed over time, your own style?
Definitely developed over time, definitely. And I had to start actually by recognizing that I had to change myself, because I couldn't just leave my job. I needed the money. My children were dependent on me. And I knew that somehow I had to approach life with a more positive, upbeat outlook so that I would survive the following 18 months, 2 years that I had to continue in that employment. And that was difficult, but I made it fun, and I engaged my children in it. And I really recognized my triggers. I mean, for a whole month, we stopped watching the news because I found myself regurgitating all the bad things. I mean, it's so easy. And as you say something bad, the person next to you or on the phone, they'll repeat it back to you. And so you're fueling this bad conversation. Oh yeah, but the weather's bad, it's going to be worse tomorrow. And oh, that boss is horrible, my dress is bad. I mean, I was the best person at negativity. I was the ace #1 star. So I had to change myself before I could do anything else, definitely.
Wow.
And then through the process, I started to recognize, which I think many of us don't, my actual skills and what made me super happy. Because I believe the key to our purpose is that. And what are you doing when the time flies? And I came across this exercise, which I will share with you because you might use it. I realized that the people that we admire, our heroes, actually give a clue to who you are and what your passions are. So I started to identify my 3 heroes. One was Florence Nightingale. Well, I was a nurse, right? One was Alexander David Neal, the first explorer, female explorer, into Tibet, way back in time. And the third was Indiana Jones. Well, I do like a bit of excitement. So the 3 people combined, it was me, right? And so I realized that travel, care, exploration, pioneer, courage, fearlessness. So it was like putting a jigsaw puzzle together. And I was single. My children were about to launch into their career. And I realized I had so many life experiences. I was a mature woman. I was a nurse. I was a mother. I was a businesswoman. And I thought, I've got those skills. I've got a really good package there. And if I can really use that passion and put it all together, and that's how I came really to the sense that I could be in the worst places on earth and help people. Yeah.
And you embody all of those qualities, and I love that exercise. That's incredible. Our listeners will get a lot out
It's
of
very good to do at the pub, I tell you, over a glass of beer or a glass of wine.
Exactly. That helps. Oh my gosh, wow. And I share the Indiana Jones with you for sure. That's a part of my DNA as well. I'm curious to start talking about your very first adventure, because it's one thing to have this vision and it's another thing to make it into a reality. And so I'm curious about that very first expedition, and I'm not sure if that is one of the ones in the book or if it's one that you haven't shared yet. Would you please tell us about that?
Yes, I mean, what I needed to do, I think, and if anyone to embark on the type of work that I do, you've got to test yourself out, because however much you go to university for international development training, or you have no idea what the reality is like. So I literally wanted to see if I could live in a country where I didn't understand what anyone was saying. I wanted to be somewhere where I didn't particularly like the food, where sanitation wasn't very good, so the toilets aren't very nice. Could I actually exist in that environment? Because that's tough. So my first foray was to China, and as a complete volunteer, as a human being, excited to share life skills. And that was it, not as a humanitarian aid worker. And my daughter had been to China on a gap year, and she'd had bad experience. All her money was stolen on the first day, and this, that, and the other. But I knew that I needed to just, as a woman, especially a mature woman, had I got used to creature comforts, had I got used to a good shower and a soft bed and food I recognized. And so that was what I did first of all. And I found that I loved it. I actually loved it. I love differences. I'm curious about people. I won't go into the toilets and the bathroom facilities, but I was even curious about that. Everything to me was fascinating. You know, what they ate when you went to the market, and because in China, of course, they eat everything. So you have to do the snake and the donkey and the dog and whatever's going on. And I was curious enough to be able to not judge, because just because we don't eat it doesn't mean they shouldn't eat it. Not to assume my way is right. So I had that openness to be able to sleep in a bed where the cockroaches climbed up the mosquito net, you know, and you woke up to this, you know, array of cockroaches around you, where you went out in the day and you came back and the bed was covered in green mold. It was so humid. It was extreme, but I needed to test myself. I did. And I survived. Excuse me.
Yeah, it's amazing, amazing. Go ahead, have some water. We'll edit this a little bit.
Okay.
So, Linda, I want to very specifically lay out for our listeners how you work with entrepreneurs from the business world.
Yes.
How you go
Yes.
into disaster areas. Can you talk a little bit about your specific work?
Yes, I can. And I must mention my mentor. And my mentor is Prince Charles, because my first real humanitarian project was in Delhi in India, in a Tibetan refugee camp. And already in my mind, this was back in 2001, as I started to research, I was curious about success of humanitarian projects, innovation of humanitarian projects in the traditional way. And so when I met Prince Charles, and I knew he was very much a champion of business leaders, so I shared with him, I said, I want to now engage the private sector in my work. And his response was, absolutely, they are the most underused resource in development work. And he said to me, I want to give you a warning. He said, as you tell them your projects, they will reach into their wallets and get out a checkbook and start to write a big number on the check. He said, as they go to give it to you, leave the check on the table. Money is always needed, but the jewel is them. You need their business skills, their entrepreneurial skills. You want their heart, their soul, and their passion. So don't just grab the money and run, because the jewel is the individual. So this was the lesson I got from Prince Charles. And this is what I've used my whole career. It's never about money. Money is always there. Look at the governments. Whenever there's a disaster, they throw millions at it. What is lacking is critical analysis. What is lacking is careful intelligence. What is lacking is business planning around a solution, not just throwing money at something and keeping your fingers crossed that it will work. So I've had the honor of working with many business people throughout the world. And what is really great is they're so excited to be asked to be involved. People don't ask them. All they do is ask for their money. And I think there's many reasons for that. One can be they don't want the business people interfering. Two, the charity or government might feel they don't understand our world. But what the private sector brings is innovation, creativity, critical analysis. They bring success. They will never start anything that will fail. If they thought there would be a 20% success rate, they would never start it. We need to apply that to the world of humanitarian and environmental care, because this is critical. And the innovation that they can bring and the insight, the accountability, the timelines is phenomenal. And so I have become the champion of bringing the private sector to the party of caring for the most critical people in the most critical situations, as well as the environment. And it's a joy. My latest foray is bringing in the brightest young brains, because I missed them out, and it was a mistake. So now I do both. I have the mature business brain, and I bring in the unprogrammed, fresh brain where everything is possible. And I tell you what, the combination of them both, that's where the magic is.
Wow. Well, not very many people, Linda, can say that Prince Charles is their mentor. So that's incredible. And what's fascinating to me about you is your ability to live within both worlds. So you can go and live in the third world, and yet you interact elegantly and beautifully in the first world, even though I know you mentioned to me before you have a bit of disdain for the first world at this point in your career after everything that you've seen. I am so curious about this very next trip. Can you lay out for me a little bit about what kinds of people you're bringing together and what kind of an experience they'll have, and also how you, Linda, go and are able to flip-flop back and forth between these two very different worlds?
I think the flip-flop for me is just part of my DNA. I feel very comfortable in the worst war-torn zone you can imagine, as much as going to the palace. I feel just as comfortable in a boardroom with a suit on as I do with sweat dripping off the end of my nose after dealing with a big tsunami in Thailand. So that's part of my character. And I think people like me are so needed, because it's one world. We have to bring people together like that. And people are nervous about stepping out of their own comfort zone. But once you've done it, it's easy. And that's, what do they say? Outside of your comfort zone is where the magic is. So never stay in your comfort zone, jump out of it. in answer to your question about what am I doing now, the key thing that I've developed this very, very last sort of 6 months is something called the Race for Good. It's the people that I want to work with are top business people. They're very busy. They have very pressurized lives, but they want to engage. University students, again, starting their career. And the key thing that's missing in most of our lives at the moment, especially in the first world, is fun, excitement, playing, games, surprises. And why do you think that all these virtual games are so addictive? People can escape into it. They feel significant. They feel relevant. They have fun doing it. So I have created a game where people can engage for just 21 days, 3 weeks. And they can be in teams. There's challenges, there's surprises, and there's a prize. And the winner of the game, 21 days, solving a critical problem on the front line, comes with me. And they actually implement their solution. So people are excited to join this. And this is I believe this will be my swan song. This is my legacy to the world, to actually get this game as almost like a football league around the world. People competing around the world. It's a knockout to really solving the most critical problems on earth. I love taking people with me to the front line. It's a time when you can step away from the programming of the first world, the programming of what we feel is important, whether it's the house, the car, the private school, the yacht, the whatever it is, to get in touch with your heart, your soul, what really makes you happy. And the key thing that all humans need is contribution. Contribution is the greatest human need. And when we're in service to others, and you see people when they're sleeping in a tent and they're sharing a small bathroom, they're not washing for a few days, but they're having the most joyous experience with people who have nothing. The sharing of life, of fun, of joy, of skills, everyone leaves a better person. And watching that unfold is pure joy.
Wow. One thing that struck me in your book was, you went into Thailand and you were working there for a while.
Yeah.
And eventually you came to bring circus performers. And I just thought that was the most interesting, amazing, and innovative idea. Can you tell our audience a little bit about that experience?
Absolutely. Now, I was in the largest survivors camp in Thailand, 5,000 Thai people. And the sad thing is about a big disaster. Before the good people get there, the UN, Red Cross, the bad people get there first. So the sex traffickers, the child kidnappers, they arrive. So we have to always make a very secure pen for the children. And I'd arrived in this camp, and after doing some first aid work, this sweet little girl kept pulling me to go and see where the children were. And they were doing art therapy, and the paintings were black. The grief, the pain that was coming out. And as I looked at these children, and I realized that they'd lost parents, siblings, teachers, religious leaders, but still the next day happens, the sun rises. So in my heart and soul, I thought, we need to make them smile again. That joy has to start from within, however slowly. And I am a magician. My father's a magician, my grandfather was a magician, and I thought to myself, we need magicians here. Because magic, you don't need translators. People watch it, the rabbits appear, they disappear. And it brings joy and surprise and curiosity. So I called home to my father and said, Dad, we need the magic circle out here. And his response was, are you mad? This is the worst disaster we've had in decades. But luckily, the first magician came out, and he was like the Pied Piper. The children followed him. The adults would just watch him, and their shoulders would relax for a second, and they would smile. And it was just a healing was happening, pure healing. And what was, again, the ripple effect of great deeds. And I had this phone call from Winston Churchill's granddaughter. Her name was Arabella Churchill. And she said to me, Linda, you have a magician on the front line. I have a mobile circus. Can I bring it out? So for 3 months, we had stilt walkers, jugglers, and clowns. And I tell you what, they did more good than 5 nurses. They healed the heart. They encouraged the smiles. And do you know what? Even to today, here I am sitting in Nepal, I have magic in my bag. Because up in the villages, those people are suffering, and I want to bring the smile to their face. And a hug and a smile and laughter is the best medicine. So magic, laughter, we take sport, we do drama, we sing, but magic is always in the bag. Yes.
Wow. I want to ask you one final question about, just so that our listeners can really understand the kind of work that you do. So I would love if you would talk a little bit about the Thai fishermen and how you were able to implement a new business for them, and how you were able to gain their trust and bring in the business leaders to help them find a sustainable business, if you will.
Yes, I mean, this is actually the key thing that I do, because when we go into a situation where everything's gone through a disaster, we have to, it's not like we don't, in our first world, we have insurance, right? So we can claim back, we can rebuild our house, they don't have anything. There's no security, no financial, no social security. Unless they can earn money quickly, they'll die, basically. The emergency teams leave, they have survived. How are they going to earn money? And this is what happened in Thailand. So I went to the private sector, I went up to Bangkok, I asked the business leaders to come with me, and I said, your task is to find something they can do right now to earn money. Now, the people were very low educated, very poor people. They could not relocate. They were the bellboys, the gardeners, the cleaners of the hotel industry. The hotel's gone, destroyed. The business people I took forward with me, they looked at the environment, they talked to the people, they went back to Bangkok. A week later, they called me and they said, yes, we've come up with a business that these people can do right there where they are. And what reassured me was that they would never suggest it unless it was going to be successful, because it's too embarrassing if it fails. So they said that lining the coast where the wave hit were acres of rubber trees. Rubber was a viable business for the next 10 years. And I said, fine, okay, tell me how much it costs to start these people to collect the rubber. They said $200 for a small community. All they need is a coconut shell, a knife to scour the tree, and a rubber mangle. $200, that was it. Within 4 months, they were earning 3 times the money they ever earned in the hotel industry. That is a hand up, not a handout. I could have never thought of that. It was the businessmen with a business brain, knowing they had to find a way they could earn money that was sustainable, that was cost effective, that they were able to do right there and then with their level of education, their skill set, and their family. To this day, those people are self-made entrepreneurs. It cost $200 US.
Wow. Well, Linda, I am extremely inspired by you, and I can't wait to be with you in person and one day go on one of these trips with you.
Yay!
Yay. Is there any final thoughts that you'd like to share with our audience today before we close?
Never get overwhelmed. Our world is a crazy place. Every single person, every single day can make a difference. Call someone, hug someone, buy someone a coffee, babysit. Never hesitate to volunteer. We need you. And if you feel you have no skill set, a magician can make a difference. A hugger can make a difference. All of us have a privileged first world education. We are all mini accountants. Never hesitate to volunteer, but reach out. In your own country, you have people in need. Outside, you do. Travel, experience the world. There was a great quote I read. The world is a book, and if you don't travel, you read only one page. Get out there and experience it. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you, Linda. You're amazing. Thank you, thank you.
That was amazing. I was listening to the whole thing. I can't wait to read your book. I just bought it right now.
Yeah, I've been telling you, Jason, this woman.
No, I know. I just had
Right
time for it. So I'm looking forward to doing that, and I really want Lonnie to read it as well. We're going to give us a little bit till Monday or so to make edits on this, and then we'll post it. And we really look forward to posting the video interview that you did with Samantha and an article, and we'll definitely be in touch. We are definitely going with you on one of these trips. We just have to make it work on schedule. And I think Jordan already told you we're going to Nepal at the end of March to climb the base camp with Sarah Safari.
Yes.
And you get a chance, you should watch her TED Talk that she did in Paris. If you just go to YouTube and just search Sarah Safari TED Talk, you'll be able to see it. You and her are cut from the same cloth.
Well, that's what I was saying. I'm saying we need to connect them. And I was telling Linda that we definitely want to work with her and make some films. It's just we want to take our time and come up with the best way to do it. So
yeah.
I also told Linda that we want to do a serialized podcast. So in a few weeks, when you have some time, we'll do another one to hear more about your current work. But you're awesome.
Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Say again?
There's a few stories I can tell.
I'm sure.
I'm sure you have a basket full of them.
Yeah, one or two, yeah.
Well, I hope you feel better soon. Thanks for taking the time with us. And we'll be sending all this to you soon, and you can, hopefully promote it and send it out to your whole network as well.
Oh, yes, you bet. You bet.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Linda.
Okay, bye-bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.